Spiritual Life Center, transforming lives as we love, serve, and remember who we are.
One heart, one mind,
one soul at a time.
Hello, and welcome to our WOW Wednesday program, where we explore spiritual topics with wisdom, oneness, and whimsy. If this is your first time with us, my name is Paula Mandella, and I have the honor and pleasure of serving as Director of Music and Arts Ministry here at Spiritual Life Center. Tonight's program is part of our Talk the Walk series, in which I've been invited to share my spiritual journey with you. I'll be speaking about the experiences I've had and the paths I've taken to come into the awareness of the vertical alignment of the head, heart, and hands, in other traditions called body, mind, spirit. I'll also make connections with how this theme of head, heart, and hands play into the elements of music. This video was recorded in June of 2018, and there are a number of segments where members of the audience were sharing and off mic and not audible. So I'd like to thank Cameron Lawson from our media team for splicing this all together to create a cohesive presentation. As a musician, I've noticed how this theme of head, heart, and hands has impressed me and shows up in my songwriting. I'd like to begin this evening by sharing one of these songs with you. Another huge thank you to Ira Mandella, also on our media team, for helping me create this beautiful music video. I hope you enjoy.
Paula Mandella first of all, has become a really good friend of mine. And I am so honored to be a collaborator with her and to work with her. She is a world-class musician who has been playing piano since she was 8 years old. After graduating from the Cornish Institute of Performing Arts in Seattle, she has enjoyed a career that has spanned everything from European festival tours to musical theater, music education, and music ministry. Paula lived in Paris for 12 years, and during that time, she toured through Europe, Scandinavia, Africa, and the Caribbean, learning about different cultures and playing with musicians from many different countries. Blending her classical and jazz roots with world music sensibilities, Paula brings an exciting versatility and diversity to her performances, as we have all seen through the years. After that period, she returned to Sacramento and devoted the next decade developing and teaching the music program at Camellia Waldorf School based on the, you had to do this to me, didn't you? Pedagogy and spiritual teachings of Austrian philosopher Rudolf Steiner. This is a period of enormous growth for Paula and her son Ira. Through much synchronicity and led by Spirit, she finds herself currently serving as Director of Music and Arts Ministry at Spiritual Life Center. Ladies and gentlemen, Paula Mandella. You're over there. So good evening, Paula.
Good evening.
It's so good to get you back up here on the platform in this mode.
Yeah, I want to say thank you for inviting me to do this Talk the Walk. It was just, the reason I laugh so much is because today is anything but a show. It's actually, it's like the behind the scenes kind of thing. It's going to be a moment where you're going to get to know me in a way that you probably don't. Very likely don't. And,
which is a very cool thing. You know, I see Paula in many, many different hats because we're in staff together and we do this. And for me, one of the best times is to watch when there's some interlude on the platform and she's just rocking out and playing and it's like, that's Paula. And then I turn around and no, that's Paula. And so in our last conversation, we were starting to get into your really deeply into your spiritual path, but of course we ran out of time. So you, I think, wanted to sort of pick up and give a much fuller picture of what all that's been like. So do you want to just
take it
away? Take it away, Paula.
Yes, I would. So what I want to talk with you tonight about is how the theme of head, heart, and hands has woven through my spiritual journey and showed up in all of these different ways, and how they are similar. And it's just an interesting, has been a consistent part of my journey, and I want to share a little bit of that with you tonight. So I'm going to set up a little bit of some context. I grew up in the Catholic Church, went to Catholic school, and as far as spiritual inklings in that time, I would say the biggest intrigue for me was pondering the concept of eternity. I just thought that was a pretty amazing thing. And then after I was in school, I had a period between high school and college where I wasn't really sure what I was up to. And at that time I was selling jewelry, making and selling jewelry. One of my other passions is gemstones, and I could have kind of gone in that direction as a career too, but I decided music was it. But during that period of time was when I was traveling around doing art shows and selling jewelry. I had my first, I would say, a spiritual awakening. And I wanted to share that with you in the form, it was a very powerful vision that I had. And the context for it was that I was in Lake Tahoe with a group of artists, and I was staying in a home, and there was a young woman, a 20-year-old woman who had a stroke, and she was staying in the same house. We were both guests in this house. And she was there to work with a parapsychologist. She had tried many forms of healing modalities, allopathic, and she had a blind spot in her vision. I'm going to try to make this short because I don't want to lose time. When I met her, she walked into the house where I was staying, and she had a pyramid on her head made out of gold and copper and silver. That led to my meeting the person that she was working with, the parapsychologist. I ended up getting snowed in with her at his house, sleeping under a huge pyramid with this huge crystal gemstone hanging, capstone. So that was kind of the beginning of, and so I went back and spent a weekend with this person, and during that time, I was getting introduced to a lot of things. One of them was Uri Geller. Do you remember Uri Geller and the spoon bending? Yeah, I learned how to bend spoons. And anyway, all during this time, I started to feel a vibration in this area. And then one evening, I had a very powerful vision. And it's still very strong in my mind, the vision. In fact, I wish I was an artist and could paint this vision. But I thought, just as a meditation and as a way to start this evening off in my spiritual journey, I would try to share this vision with you as a meditation. So I invite you to close your eyes. And I would like you to imagine that you are standing in total darkness, and you fix your vision between your eyes. And then, as if there is a manhole cover and you're standing underneath a street, and a manhole cover slowly slips away, and this bright beam of white, blue light comes pouring into your space, and you're standing in front of this brilliant beam of blue-white light. And it's quite an amazing thing to see. And you feel this vibration happening in your third eye area. And then birds made of this white light start to break off of this beam and start flying out of this beam all around. That's it. That's the vision that I had. And it's very, very powerful, still very strong in my mind as a pictorial image. If there are any artists that might be inspired to try to paint that, it would be wonderful. I'd love to see it. So, that led me, after that period of time, after that 3-year period, I decided music was my path, it was my calling, and it was my path, and I enrolled at the American River College and began that part of my journey. During this time, I was looking for a place to live, and I found myself renting a room in this beautiful home in Carmichael, and there was an entrepreneur gentleman who was renting a room in his house, and living in his home was a beautiful woman named Catherine, who was his mother. She had been a professional dancer in her younger years, and she was in her last phase of her battle with leukemia. And at one point, she just told me in no uncertain terms that I had been sent to her. And I want to say threw some books at me, because I have this memory but I wouldn't say she threw them at me, but she definitely threw them towards me. And one of them was, this is pretty heady stuff. So this was like my deepening into spiritual path. Meetings with Remarkable Men by Gurdjieff, and a treatise on white magic by Alice Bailey, which was, she claimed, channeled by a Tibetan master. In that book, I discovered the Great Invocation. And that was my first introduction to the head, heart, and hands. So I'm going to read to you the Great Invocation. It has appeared in several forms, but I'm going to read it the exact way that it was in her book. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of man, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. How many of you are familiar with that? Mm-hmm. So this invocation impressed me very strongly. I had it printed and pinned on my wall and right above my keyboard for that whole period of time I was living in Paris. And it was a foundational piece of my spiritual thinking and practice. So, now I want to fast forward after that 12-year period that you spoke about in my Parisian days. It was a wonderful time, really, really wonderful time. Now I have a beautiful son named Ira, and we have moved back to Sacramento. And it's time for school. This is how we got introduced, both of us, to the Waldorf education. I only knew that I did not want to put my special son, Ira, through the public school system. But I didn't do a lot of research about where or what. Interestingly enough, I had actually lived in Switzerland for a year before I went to Paris, and there was that was where Rudolf Steiner was based for a long time. I did not know or had not heard of Rudolf Steiner when I lived in Switzerland, which I kind of regret because I would have liked to visit the Goetheanum there, which is he was very much into architecture as one of his things, and there was a beautiful building there, which was the center of their activities there. Now, how many people have heard of Rudolf Steiner? Or how many people are familiar with the Waldorf education? Oh, this is awesome. I mean, really how it was founded and the tenets and all of that? Well, I'll share a little bit about it. So Rudolf Steiner was an Austrian philosopher, a social reformer, an architect, and an esotericist. And his research led him to believe that there was a comprehensible spiritual world that was accessible to the human experience through inner work. And he was at the turn of the century, he was invited by the CEO, I guess, of the Waldorf Astoria cigarette factory to come and share his ideas. And he was asked at that time, how should we educate the children? Rudolf Steiner made enormous contributions in many facets of life: architecture, medicine, agriculture, art. It was pretty amazing. He made amazing contributions. His thinking was very, very influenced by Goethe, actually. And so, as far as the education of children, which is what he was asked by Emil Holt, with the leader of the Waldorf Astoria factory. This was a time just after the war, and they were in economic ruins, and there was a need for social renewal, and he was asked this question. So he accepted the challenge. And I would say that this is the second time where I understood the idea of implementing the head, heart, and hands in the education of the children. So the head being, referring to the clarity and independent thinking, the heart to feel into your work and into your world, and the hands to have the willingness to take action and to contribute to the world. So that is a basic tenet of Waldorf education, and it shows up in the entire curriculum. So, of course, I was very interested in how does that work into music. And when I first arrived, there was not at that Camellia Waldorf School, there was not a music program, and I was led into networking with other people and studying what Rudolf Steiner had to say about the pedagogical approaches to teaching music in a spiritual way. And so this part here, we're going to get into, I'm going to make you work for this just a little bit. I'm not just going to say it, like hand it out, because I think I want it to be an experiential thing. So I didn't really think through exactly how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to, well, let me ask the first thing. If I ask you to think about what are the elements of music, what's the answer? Okay, bingo on that one. Okay, now we got two. Rhythm, harmony, and melody. Rhythm, harmony, and melody are the three elements. And so what I want to do now is give you an experiential feeling into how does that relate to head, heart, and hands? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play a melody. I invite you to really tune into and increase your sensibilities to the audio, is to close your eyes if you're comfortable, and I'm going to play something. Pick up the mic. Now I'm going to play another wacky instrument that I was sharing with Deborah and Sasha, that I found this instrument at the Tellini's nursery. Go figure. And it's very cool, and I'm going to play something on this. sound, huh? What does the element of harmony, where does it live in in the human being?
I just want to say that they both just swept me away. Mm-hmm. I was lifted up and out of my body and just thoroughly dancing in those melodies. Mm-hmm. Both of them.
Mm-hmm. And yes?
I really couldn't get into any of it until a visual came to me. So the first flute put me on the mountains, and the twang put me like in Africa dancing around. But when you did the major rendition, I was in a Gothic cathedral with beautiful stained glass windows, and I was in heaven. When you went to minor, it was like vampires, like I was a victim woman that was being trapped, bound by some sadistic such and such.
Wow.
I mean,
That's some pretty heavy. That was some pretty heavy emotion right there.
yeah. Well, music does
Yes.
drive my emotions.
Yes. Anybody else have a share of experience?
The first part I was very much the same. I was in a big cathedral, and I loved the bass notes, and so when that came in, it was just melting for me, Then, then the minor, a really dark forest, and there was a path that I was supposed to come out of the church and go into, and I didn't want to. I stood there and kept saying, no, I don't want to go there. It's too dark.
Well, I was in a cathedral with the first one. I was in the cathedral at the second one, but at that one I was at a funeral.
Yes. It's interesting because when I was looking for what piece to demonstrate this, what happens if you shift a major into a minor, I tried a Mozart's funeral march, and it didn't work. It was just too dark altogether. Even when I turned it into, it just didn't. But that one dramatically changed feeling from the major to the minors, like totally different feeling experience. So we've determined then that harmony is the element of music that is in this center. What family of instruments would you say that is connected to? Where did the melody take you in? Where of the three? In the head. Mm-hmm. Now, how do we produce? So, what group of instruments is related to melody mostly? If you think of an orchestra.
Horns, violin, strings.
Interesting. Wind. The wind. The wind instruments.
Yeah.
Yes. And wind, spirit. Yes. So this is what Steiner says about melody. He said that that the element of melody in music is the only thing that gives the head access to feeling, because it is otherwise open only to concept. The mind is otherwise open only to concept, and melody carries the heart to the head.
True. Yeah.
And then this fun thing. You said it. You started doing this.
Emotion, that's
The rhythm. Where do you think in the body, as if we're drawing a picture of the human being in terms of musical elements, where then does rhythm live in the human being? Bottom chakra. Bottom chakra. say the solar plexus? Because that's what we... Well, we established that the harmony, when you create harmony and you can create mood and you can create different feelings, that's the heart center. I just shared with you what the melody can do. The melody can take the heart into the head. And rhythm is in the metabolic system. It's in the limbs. Rhythm makes you move. Yes. Yeah?
It's like all over the body.
Right.
You can feel the beat in your whole body, the vibration and all that, and especially like in deep bass notes, things like that. You know, like in a bass guitar and an amplifier, you feel that throughout your body, really. But the hands and the feet are where we tend to express a beat.
So there, this discussion that we're starting right now, I mean, there's so many elements of music in terms of pitch, interval, and all of that. That would be the subject of another talk, if you'd like sometime. I'm really trying to focus on the head, heart, and hands and how that relates to the musical instruments. And I just wanted to kind of give an introduction into that. And it's a fascinating world, but I feel that this, again, has been a foundational piece of my music ministry. I think that, well, let's see. So we have the thinking, the feeling, and the rhythm or the will forces coming out of the hands, right? I mean, the hands are the things we use to take action. We do with our hands. So what I've come to understand is that this vertical alignment of head, heart, and hands, which keeps showing up in all of these different traditions and teachings, is about this vertical alignment and fusing the illuminated mind with the open heart brings us to right action. And that can be expressed. I really have this very much in my consciousness when I'm programming music to serve different functions. And I have found it interesting. I have found it interesting that some people that I have come across hold a belief system that in church, that there's a certain type of music that only applies. The music that's here or here, but not, not the rhythm. But if you think about other cultures and their spiritual traditions, drumming and chanting are like integral parts of their spiritual practice. And so I just think that this integration of the melody, the harmony, and the rhythm all has a particular place in the expression of spiritual evolvement, if you will. I'd like to share with you now some expressions of how in the Waldorf pedagogy that this concept of teaching the children through the head, heart, and hands shows up. There is a lot of speaking of verses together in the Waldorf classrooms. How many of you were at Deborah's talk last week about denials and affirmations? Okay. I would say that these are actually affirmations as well, or maybe a prayer. But I'm going to share with you too, and I want you to just listen to this and live into how this is working in the children. This first one I'm going to read is from the lower grades. It would be a morning verse to start the day, grades 1 through 3. The sun with loving light makes bright for me each day. The soul with spirit power gives strength unto my limbs. In sunlight shining clear, I revere, O God, the strength of humankind, which thou so graciously hast planted in my soul, that I, with all my might, may love to work and learn, From thee stream light and strength. To thee rise love and thanks. So that's... And then, as they get into the upper grades, 5 through 8, this would be an example of a morning verse, and you'll see the deepening of this idea. I look into the world wherein there shines the sun, wherein there gleam the stars, wherein there lie the stones. The plants they live and grow, the beasts they feel and live, and humankind to spirit gives a dwelling in the soul. I look into the soul that living dwells in me. God's spirit lives and weaves in sunlight and in soul light, in heights of worlds without, in depths of soul within. To thee, O Spirit of God, I seeking turn myself, that strength and grace and skill for learning and for work in me may live and grow. When I would hear the children speak that together, it was a very, very powerful thing. Very powerful. I definitely felt along the way of all the experiences that I had, which were wonderful. Music has taken me around the world and exposed me to cultures and amazing things. And I'm very grateful for that. And there was a point where I said to myself, I would like to be playing music for people that are actually listening. And and music, and I want to focus on music that has light in it. Because that wasn't always my experience in the nightclubs. Although I would have to say there were some very rewarding moments in there, and I since I see the time, I think I can share a couple of them. I can share a couple of them, because there were times when I felt pretty much like a zombie in that world, you know, and just like, what am I doing? What is this? But one of the experiences was when I had a group in Seattle, Washington. We were playing at the top of the Hilton Hotel in Seattle, and there was a young couple, and the man was in a wheelchair, and he at one point got rolled that wheelchair out onto the dance floor, and she sat on his lap, and I mean, he was making that thing pop, and they were just having a great time. And she came up after to me in tears and said, that, you know, that was the first time that, you know, since he got in that wheelchair, that anything like that happened. And she, you know, expressed her gratitude. So I understand the power and the purpose in that moment, in the midst of feeling lost in that. The other experience was playing in a big band for the silver-haired folks at the Maidu Center in Roseville. And I'm telling you, they would dress up, and they knew all those dances, and it was a lot of fun to play for them. But one time, in my station, my piano was at the edge of the stage always, and this man walked up to me with his walker, and he said, "I'm so glad you're here, and when you come to play, it makes me glad I'm still alive." Yeah. So the wheelchair story, I mean, that was the rhythm that took hold of his will forces, and he was able to express joy that way. And so music is a deeply, deeply powerful thing. And I think as we evolve, I think we are becoming more conscious of it. And even if we don't all become conscious, deep, you know, totally aware of the significance of music and its role, I'm certain that people feel it. So I wanted to bring this all back around to consideration of Spiritual Life Center's mission statement. We are transforming lives as we love, serve, and remember the head, heart, and hands, again, interwoven all through these ancient teachings and emerging wisdom. And I guess that's a good place to stop.
It is a good place to stop. Thank you, Paula. Thank you so much. You know, every once in a while, and someone will say that our Sunday service is a performance. And I can understand how on some level it might seem like that to people, but if they understood the integration of the entire service, from talking about how we're going to talk about things, the music that Paula puts together, James works is, you know, it's like, what's James's theme? What's the music going to be? And then say, any of us are doing the meditation. I sit down with all of the music, especially the meditation chant and the post-meditation song, and I listen to them. Sometimes I don't, but I listen to them. I go into that place, and that's where this all comes from. It is a really well integrated and thought out process, and it comes out so smoothly most of the
Hopefully.
time. Most of the time.
It's definitely a production.
It's a production.
It's a production, but I would not call it a performance.
But when you think about it in terms of how many times the music at the end, especially, people just can't stay sitting. They have to stand up. You can see people like that, you know, and then finally someone gets the nerve to stand up.
If we live only in the head and the heart, what effect are we going to have on our world?
We won't do anything. We won't move. Yeah. So thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
I'm going to nudge you into doing couple of these next year as well.
Okay.
We're booked for the entire year, so it'll have to be next year. But and we're also looking at doing more series type
I think
things.
I'm going to show up on Catherine's fourth.
Are you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Spiritual